Hi everybody, this is Matt. Thanks for watching and welcome back. Well, several of you have asked me, Matt, how do I go about finding a good firearms instructor? I want to get training this year and into next year, and I want to be able to plan out and everything, but I'm a little bit confused. I want to know what I should be looking for and what a course would look like in basic pistol and then going on into advanced. And what kind of expectations should I have for a class? Well, you know what? That is a very good series of questions. So hopefully I can give you a little bit of illumination here. First and foremost, remember, it's your money. You're the consumer, it's your hard-earned cash, and so you, my friend, are in the driver's seat. You get to make the choice on where you spend your money for training. And with that said, the way that I would start looking is I would go on the internet, I would find trainers in your area and just take a look if they have a website or something like that. Check them out. Do a little bit of recon, see what you've got. If, on the other hand, you want to go to a school in another state because it's something that you've always wanted to go to, like say gun sight in Arizona, something like that, why not? Go for it. But here's another good resource. Local people. Ask around at your local gun shops and your local ranges. And just float the question to them this way. Say, hey, I'm looking for a good instructor. And if it was your money and you were going to be sending your loved ones to a firearms instructor to have them teach your family, who would you send them to? And then take down those names, get the contact information, do a little bit of research, and have at it. Now, when it comes to the basics of a class, let's say for pistol, if you're starting off in a classroom environment, safety is paramount. And that should be something that you see all the way through firearms courses. Firearms courses really should not be about ego. It shouldn't be where the instructor is trying to convince you how cool they are in doing something or how gee whiz bang everything is. You're the student. Your safety and the safety of everybody else around, including that instructor, should be key. So there should be no cavalier attitudes or anything like that. So starting out in a classroom environment, my standard rule is there's never any ammunition in that classroom. None. Zero, zip, nada. Because if I'm going to do a class, you're going to see a variety of handguns going all the way back to a single action revolver to double action revolvers to semi-automatics. But there is never any ammo in the classroom. Why? Safety. It eliminates accidents or the potential for accidents. You're also going to see something like this. Actually, you'll see several of these CERT trainers. This is not a gun. This is a trainer. The only thing that it shoots is light. So it's a laser trainer. And that, my friends, is all it does. No ammunition. You can never put it in there. But this is an excellent training tool. And it's good for teaching the basics of gun handling, how to keep your finger off the trigger, how to establish a good grip, so on and so forth. You're probably going to have some coursework where you actually have to answer a questionnaire. There's a quiz at the end to check for knowledge and to verify that you're actually getting the knowledge. If you're not getting the knowledge, then that needs to be addressed. And let me roll back here just a second. If you have any particular questions, if you have something that is a little bit troublesome for you, like say you believe that you've detected something wrong with your grip or with the way that you're manipulating the trigger or loading a magazine, write them down in advance of going to a course. Because that way, if you write them down, an instructor can help you with that. Because otherwise, when you get to class, and you're milling about with other people and everything, and everybody's talking about one thing or the other, guess what? It's easy to forget. But if you write them down, hand them to the instructor and say, hey, look, I really need help with this. Could you give me a little bit of guidance? That's going to make your experience all the better. But like I said, it should be about safety. Safety is paramount. And then once you get to the range, generally what happens is you'll go to a range, you're going to have a range safety briefing, and that's going to go over, okay, here are the rules, here's the contact information in the event of some kind of an incident/accident, here are the procedures that we're going to follow, here is who you call, this is the address, this is going to be your first medical contact, this is how you're going to talk when you call 911. It just makes sense, right? And you also should not see any bad habits at the range, meaning no muzzling. Everything's pointed down range. What you don't want to see is you don't want to see people that will allow something like this. Let's say that the range is pointed down here, you're standing right here, and somebody's like, oh gee, you know, that didn't work out too good. Well, guess what? You just got muzzled. That's what you don't want to see. You don't want to see a firearms instructor allowing that sort of thing to happen. They're going to start off with the fundamentals of marksmanship, the basics of accuracy. You'll be evaluated, and generally what happens is you're going to start at a closer distance, going to check, you know, your groups, everything else. They're going to observe you and see how you are performing, see if there are any obvious glitches, like say when you go to fire, if you're going like this and you're flinching, obviously I'm over exaggerating, but if you're flinching like this, or you're anticipating and you're healing like so, that can be addressed, that can be remedied. But you'll start off at a close distance, and then as people progress, it should go out further and further and further. That's normally what happens. One other thing that I want to mention, when you're in a class, big red warning flag for me is when somebody is yelling and screaming at you, and if they're talking down to you, if they're calling you names, saying that you're not man enough to do something, life isn't worth that. So at that point, I would be exiting the class and I'm asking for my money back, because you should not be treated that way. Nobody should be talked down to in a situation like that, or made to think that they're less of a person because they're not doing something right exactly the way that they think that they should be doing it. So with that said, that's just as an aside, but you're going to progressively go out farther and farther and farther and farther until you hit a point of failure. Also be prepared to do some kind of drills. So if you're in an outdoor range, and if it's permitted, you will do holstering techniques. You're going to practice the draw strokes. You might even do that in the classroom using something like this CERT trainer just to get it down. And prepare to do some rather mundane things. Like, as an example, let's say that I want to load a magazine. So you will do something like this, where this is happening all the time. And granted, this might look boring, and most of you who watch the channel, you know I'm a lefty, so I'm doing this in my right hand. But why is that? Because we need to practice how to load a magazine. Switching around to the left. Notice that this CERT trainer does not have an ambidextrous magazine release. So my technique here is slightly different. But the loading of a magazine is basically the same. And I'm repeating it time and time again. That's how you get good with something. For example, most of you, when you go home, do you have a problem getting the key in the door and unlocking the door to your house? No. Why is that? Because you've done it thousands and thousands and thousands of times. So be prepared to do some drills, and also be prepared to be critiqued a little bit. For example, you don't want to be looking down at this and then trying to go, because if you were in a situation that is life and death or something like that, and you've got a threat out here, the last thing that you want to be doing is looking at the ground. You want to be able to look up, so you're going to have this up in what's called the workspace, so I can see exactly what's going on We practice how we're going to index that magazine and then get it in there. And like I said, I practice ambidextrously. So loading it like this, and I know I'm looking down at it, which again is something that you shouldn't do. So even if you're holding it up here and you're looking down, guess what? Shouldn't be doing that. So up here like this, make sure that gravity is your friend, so the magazine falls clear like this. If you have it like so, a regular magazine, now this is weighted, regular magazine is going to be rather sticky and it's not going to want to come out. So when you're practicing, like I said, I know this is boring. I know it is rather mundane, but this type of practice is important. So now that's not something that you're going to be doing 24/7 when you're at a training class, but it's something that you should be practicing on a daily basis at home, because that's how you get good at stuff. So anyway, you'll be evaluated at the end of the day or at the end of the week or after 2 days, whatever the length of the course is. And be prepared for some constructive criticism, because if they notice that you have a particular idiosyncrasy where you're doing something a particular way, just simply because that's the way that you've been doing it all your life, don't be offended by it. Don't be feeling bad if you're not quite getting a concept and if it's something that you have to practice, because there are so many people that don't know how to grip the gun properly, and so you'll see a lot of teacup grips, or you'll see, you know, where people do this and they leave a gap. I know that I did a video on this, but just the sheer simplicity of indexing, where you come up, get everything in there, a lot of times people have issues with it. But it's just like anything, the more you practice it, the easier it becomes. And if you're struggling with anything, use your practice time to practice on your weaknesses, because in the areas that you're strong, you don't have to practice those quite as often. So practice to your weaknesses, not necessarily your strengths. And continue your education. Continue to seek out classes, and if there's something about a class you don't like I said, don't go back. You don't have to. Also, I would strongly suggest that if you have the opportunity at a range or a facility close to you that has a simulator, use that. That stuff, that is really worth the money, in my opinion. Because in the simulators, not only can you do target practice with essentially a real firearm where the cylinder, or there is a CO2 cylinder in here that reciprocates the slide. Not only can you do target practice with that, but they have shoot, no shoot situations where you're put into a simulation of judgment. You know, bad guy enters, stuff is going wrong. How do you react? Or do you react? You know, do you draw a firearm, or do you just simply tell the trainer, in this situation, I would just leave and I would get on the phone and call 911. So if you have a chance, if you've never done it before, I would highly recommend that. But begin at the basics, remember the fundamentals of marksmanship, and then go on to advanced techniques. And by advanced techniques, what I'm talking about is not just doing static shooting at the range where, you know, you're up here and you're just firing from this position, but also a kneeling position, a prone position, urban prone, you know, where you're laying over on your side and in areas that you're very uncomfortable with because you probably haven't done it before. That's getting more and more advanced, but that's what I would recommend based upon the questions that you have asked me. And there you have it. I'm sure that you're going to have more questions, and that's fine. That's what this channel is for. And continue to ask. Anyway, thanks for watching, just like always. And until next time, all of you, be safe out there and have a good one.